My wife and I just spent the past 5 months renovating a 1984 original condition home here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we put a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and money into this project. And today we're going to be talking about all the lessons that I learned doing this at 22 years old. Because let me tell you, we made a lot of mistakes, a lot of which could have definitely been avoided. So if you're ever thinking about doing this in the future, I want to give you confidence that if I can do it, then you definitely can too. And hopefully I can help you avoid a few of these mistakes along the way. Now, the reason that we bought this house specifically was because it was a split level home, meaning when you walk in, you have stairs up or down. We decided to live in the bottom half, rent out the top half, but first we needed to do a lot of work, including replacing all the paint, replacing all the flooring. We need to tear out walls. We needed to replace an HVAC, a roof, replace light fixtures, all the switches and the plugs. And on top of all of that, we wanted to add a kitchen downstairs so that it could be a completely separate unit for us to live in with a walkout entrance and everything. We originally planned on this whole thing taking about 2 months, doing most of the work ourselves. So lesson number one, you should probably double or triple the time, energy, and cost that you think it's going to take to do a project when you're doing most of it yourself. But even when you're working with contractors, things always take longer than expected and cost more than you expected. We are here in month 6. It's been rented out for 1 month now. So it took us 5 months to do that renovation process. Way longer and way more work than we ever thought possible. And those last 2 months especially, it felt like the project was just never gonna end. And what's worse is we were probably 80% done in the first 2 months, and then the final 20% took the remainder of the rehab. I think that's the 80-20 rule. It's real, so you gotta be aware of that. And there's a few reasons that this happened, right? First of all, I did most of the work myself, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm here over at YouTube Academy pretty much every day, or calling my dad like, what the heck do I do? Trying to FaceTime him. But there's also just so many things that you just don't even know to plan for. Things go wrong. You run out of items and have to make a million more trips to the store than you thought. You're dealing with contractors. Sometimes they go on vacation or they're unresponsive and you have to switch contractors, or it takes them, twice as long to do it as they said, and really you don't even have a reason why, but it just is what it is. And there's another lesson to be learned from that is, one, if you really need it done as soon as possible, you want to get it rent ready, then you need to just hire it all out. And with the contractors, I would specify that the payments will be made as they complete work to make sure that they are completing it in a timely manner and that you're not getting screwed over and they're, running away with the money or anything like that. And also just knowing that if you're doing work yourself, there are going to be certain tasks that you either hate, you suck at and it'll take forever, or, both, which were the case for me, that it would have actually financially made more sense to hire it out and get this thing done a month or two early than for me to drag out that rehab at the end. And, you just really don't know until you do it the first time around. When you're looking at buying a house, you want to do work on it, whether you just want a good deal on a house you're going to live in, or it's going to be an investment, whatever the case may be. The very first thing you want to do before you even make the offer is obviously you go through the photos, right? You make sure you have a good understanding of what needs done. Then you go look at it, you take good photos and videos so you can share that with friends, investors, contractors, and get quotes that way. I just did a bunch of Googling. I talked to, ChatGPT. I got handyman quotes through different websites. I did all of this while I was thinking about making the offer, so I at least had a general idea of how much things would cost, and I tried to be as conservative as possible. If there was a range, I'd go to the end of it, right? I'd also clarify what would actually need done versus what could be done versus what's not even worth dealing with. Depending on your market, depending on what rents are. If you're doing Airbnb, it might need to look a little more luxurious, so we went with some upgrades in the house that maybe we wouldn't have done otherwise. If you're just doing a straight up flip, then it's going to be really hard in a lot of markets right now to make the numbers work. Thankfully, I'm not doing that. We're doing what's called a house hack, renting out part of the house. It's a buy and hold opportunity. So not only are we going to increase our equity because of this rehab, but really the money's going to be made in the appreciation, being that we're in an appreciation market here and we plan to hold it for a long time, and then also the future cash flow. And because we're doing Airbnb, we're more likely to cash flow. In fact, we'll cash flow about $500 or so once we move out. And even right now, we're currently living for under $1,000, about $800 a month minus all expenses. So that's a pretty good deal, but it wouldn't be good on paper if it was just a fix and flip. I've had some people ask if I found it, off market, and the truth is I bought this thing in November. It was a slower time of year cyclically, and the listing photos were, shaky iPhone photos. There was stuff wall to wall. They were living in it, older folks who were even here for the showing. So no one was even batting an eye at this property, but I knew it was a good area. It was a super low price for the area, and I'm choosing location over, a newer property, over nicer listing photos, that kind of stuff. And that's how I was able to kind of get a good deal on the MLS. And then I just knew it was going to take a lot of work, more work than a lot of people wanted to put into it. I made sure that it had good bones, there was nothing structurally wrong with it, that kind of stuff, but I knew it needed a full cosmetic rehab. And that was something that I was willing to take on. So we got it under contract, and during the month and a half that we were under contract, I was lining up handymen and other contractors to come give quotes. Now, you can't really do that while you're under contract because you don't own the house. You don't want to waste the contractor's time, and the seller isn't usually going to allow that either. If you're able to bring one contractor with you who's going to handle all the work during your inspection or your tour or whatever, maybe you can do that. But for me, I was just lining them all up for that first week of, we're closed, now I own the house. So literally day one, I already have people showing up. Day 2, day 3, day 4, I have multiple contractors showing up every day. And I don't know how many contractors I met with over the course of a few months, but I'd say 80% of them I met with in the first week or two. So I had them all lined up, scheduled out. I knew which contractors had to do the work before the next one could start, right? And then any contractors that could do work at the same time, I had them all show up at the same time. So I had people working on the roof while they're working on the fireplace or the drywall, and I planned accordingly. And then whatever they were working on, I went and worked on something else. So I had a whole spreadsheet with what all work I needed, how much I thought it would cost, links to the websites of the contractors that I've talked to, and I kind of organized it that way. And then I had a separate notes list with a kind of general timeline of all the work that needed done with checkboxes so I could check it off as I went along. And that helped me stay very, very organized. In North Carolina, we have due diligence. It's the first few weeks of under contract where you inspect the property. You pay a fee that goes towards closing in order to do so. So for us, we had, 3 weeks to inspect the property. And one mistake that we made was taking their word for it when they said that the roof was estimated to be 3 to 5 years old. Turns out, long story short, the roof was actually near the end of its life. It was close to 20 years old. There was an active leak. And somehow the inspector missed all of this. And in retrospect, there weren't any signs showing otherwise, but I just wish that we had gotten a roof inspection separately. In the end, we got the sellers to pay for part of it, but it was a whole fiasco when we're already dealing with an entire renovation. It was the last thing that I wanted to deal with, last thing in my plans, and it actually threw out the timeline a little bit as well. So you want to trust but verify everything during the inspection process, trust but verify when you're talking with contractors, trust but verify everything. Now, when you're talking to contractors, I talked to about 3 to 5 per item. If it was something that was a larger cost or it was really important if they did it wrong or right, then I actually sometimes talked to 5 to 7. And I guarantee you I saved probably tens of thousands of dollars by talking to multiple contractors because I would get quotes that are $1, $2, up to $5,000 difference, whether it was for the HVAC or for pruning trees. There were so many different quotes coming back and forth at me that I all put in that Excel spreadsheet, and then I was able to make a good decision, which was usually someone in the middle. You don't want the cheapest guy who's uninsured, and you don't want the most expensive guy who's just trying to sell you all the bells and whistles. You can actually take the bids that each of them give you and then run it back by them. Be like, hey, this guy said he can do it for $1,000 less. Can you beat it? I was able to take off thousands just by doing that. Now, when you're making your trips to Lowe's or Home Depot, when you're hiring contractors, you need to make sure to document everything. All the communications were saved, and then all the receipts are saved. That's going to help you come tax season. Go back to the quotes in that Excel spreadsheet and put in all the expenses that you made, all the Home Depot trips and all the contractors. All that goes in there. You compare it to what you thought it would be, gives you some feedback on how you're doing. Am I above budget? Am I behind budget? Did I spend more here? Do I need to take away some here? Am I gonna actually hit my goals? My goal was 40K. I wanted to be 40K, complete renovation. We ended up going a little bit over. Towards the end, I stopped going in and tracking as much because I knew I was close enough, and that's totally fine. But the first few months, I was tracking every single line item. I was looking at it almost daily, and that's the only reason I think we didn't end up spending 50 to 60K, because I promise you, when you're getting used to spending $800, $2,000, $5,000, literally every single day, you're having multiple trips to the store, you're just paying invoices, you get used to spending money and you stop thinking about it, and that's a scary place to be in. And throughout this video, I'm going to have a few ideas on way to save money. The first one is that if you hire your friends and family, you get cheap labor. It's a lot cheaper to fly somebody up, pay for their, their lodging or their meals or whatever, than it is to pay a contractor. And it's a lot more fun. I have a contractor buddy out of Colorado, Kyle. He's in one of the videos that's up on the channel or will be up soon. And I flew him out from Colorado and we paid for all his food. The dude eats a ton. But I'll tell you, the few $100s I spent on his flight and food is nothing compared to how much money I would have spent to have a contractor do the work, or even pay somebody else to help me. And before you go hiring out contractors for everything, again, there are certain things that you actually will be pretty good at, you can do relatively quickly, and you can save so much money doing so. And that's really the only way, especially in today's market, to make money if you're doing a fix and flip, is to have an in-house team or to do all the work yourself. And literally YouTube alone got me through most of this rehab. I was able to YouTube most of my problems and get through it, even if it took me a little longer than it did the guy in the video. And I will say I'm actually really proud of how much I've learned on this rehab that otherwise I would have not known I could ever possibly do. And that includes everything from painting the house to putting in the LVP to installing light fixtures to replacing outlets and switches. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that I thought, oh boy, I'm gonna have to hire that out. And then some guy on YouTube taught me in 30 seconds. Pretty cool. Now, when you're looking for supplies to do all the work, another way to save money is to actually spend more. So if you're planning on doing a buy and hold like I am, then you don't want lipstick on a pig like the flippers do. You actually want materials that are durable. So not always do the durable materials actually cost more, but in most cases they do. That's just the fact of life. And I am totally okay with spending money on something that'll last 20 years versus 10 if I plan on holding it for 20 years or 15 years. I don't want to have to replace the flooring or repaint the house within a few years. That would suck. That would be expensive. That would take a lot of my time. I'd rather invest in the right materials so they last even longer. Now, there are certain items that no matter how much you spend, they're going to break. If you have a rental or an Airbnb, they're gonna break, they're not gonna last, it just is what it is. When it came to the furniture, everything we bought was pretty much the cheapest thing on Amazon. They all look great, they're all still relatively durable, and if I have to replace them every few years, well, I mean, I could have bought a $500 table and someone could have sat on it and broke it for all I know. Same thing with the bed frames and everything else. Those are examples of things that you could probably put a little less money into so you can put your money elsewhere. Now, while you're spending all this money, it's important that you stay liquid enough to have money in the account, because from experience, I know what it's like to look at the bank account, realize you have some credit card payments coming in, which, by the way, I pay in full, auto pay every month. I'm just using credit cards for points. However, if I have a $3,000 or in, real case, a $9,000 credit card payment coming in 2 days, and I realize I have $2,000 in the bank account, that's a problem. I had to quickly move money around from, this place to that place, sell some stocks off here, and do a bunch of maneuvering last minute to make sure that I could cover that payment. I had the cash, but it wasn't in the right place. So before you even get into the rehab, make sure you have what the cost of the budget is, plus probably 25% or so, because it's gonna go over most likely, even if you don't expect it to, even if you think you're being conservative. And then don't forget to account for the fact that you have a monthly payment every single month your rehab goes on. In my case, if we have 5 months of rehab and our monthly payment is, let's say, $2,500, well, you do the math. That is gonna add up very, very, very quickly. So yeah, it is to your benefit to do the rehab quicker, and it is to your benefit to make sure you have enough cash on the side. And I do recommend that if you have the cash for the rehab, do the credit card thing. So I have 5 or 6 credit cards. My credit score is fantastic. I've never paid interest, and I got a new credit card, the Chase Sapphire Reserve card, for this rehab specifically. I was able to get $1,200 towards travel that I was able to get just by spending money I was already going to spend, $300 of which went towards flying Kyle out to do a bunch of work, which saved me even more money. So highly recommend that, and then maybe you can go take a trip or something when you're done with the rehab as a celebration, which is exactly what I plan to do. Now this next tip is a big one. It's a joke. I make it to my wife and my friends all the time. Probably gonna say it for the rest of my life, but if you're gonna buy a house to renovate or flip, make sure you're within 5 minutes of a Home Depot or a Lowe's, Menards, whatever your store may be. My goodness, we made probably an average of 3 trips to the store per day for months and months on end. I could estimate, I couldn't tell you for sure how many trips we made to the store all in all, but I am talking it is in the hundreds, just again and again and again and again and again until you die. That is a renovation and a video. When you're at the store, make sure you buy more than you need. I learned that about halfway through the renovation because I was tired of making 50,000 trips a day. That's kind of the theme throughout this video. It's always more and more and more. So if you think you need, 1 can of paint, you buy 2 or 3. If you think you're gonna need a case of nails, you're gonna need twice that amount of nails or screws or whatever the case may be. If you're deciding between plumbing line A and plumbing line B, you get A, B, and C because it probably was C and you didn't even know it was an option. I kid you not, the amount of money that I made off returns is in the thousands, but it saved me a lot of time and money in terms of gas going back and forth because I'm so tired of getting home and realizing the moment I get there that I have the wrong thing or I didn't grab this thing. So you try to plan your trips out accordingly. No matter what you do, you're gonna make a lot of trips, but at least try to make it easier on yourself. There's nothing wrong with doing one bulk return day. Everything's on the same card. The credit card I talked about earlier. Once a month, you go and return everything and just deal with it. Trust me, it's just gonna help. Now the couch behind me and a few other items, they came from Facebook Marketplace. We also did a lot of Ross, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, those kind of thrift stores where they may have items for 50% off, but they're still name brand. Those are places that we went to just whenever we happened to pass them. Thankfully, there was a Goodwill right by Lowe's, so we were always there as well. Just making that a habit of checking in. It wasted a lot of time, but we also found a lot of good deals. We were able to get that couch for $100. And then everything else we got on Amazon. Don't be afraid of Amazon when it comes to furniture, all the small stuff really, like sheets and TVs and pillowcases, dishes, etc. We pretty much ordered everything off of Amazon that we couldn't find in those thrift store visits. And actually, if I had to go back, I probably would just do all Amazon except for maybe like the dining table and the couch, because everything else was small enough that the time you spent going through thrift stores or walking through grocery stores, it wasn't even worth it. Just order from Amazon, spend the extra few dollars. We had to put appliances in the kitchen upstairs and downstairs, so we pretty much replaced all of them. We decided to go through Lowe's. That was the most convenient way to do it, and on top of that, it ended up being cheaper than a scratch and dent place. So we went to the scratch and dent place. It's like a thrift store for appliances. We thought, oh, we're gonna be saving so much money. We bought one fridge. We ended up paying more for that fridge than we did buying it brand new, basically the same fridge at Lowe's in an appliance package. So that was a complete mistake. It was super frustrating, but for like $1,500, we got the stove, the microwave, the dishwasher, and the fridge for upstairs, and then we did basically the same thing downstairs. So I highly recommend just going through Lowe's or Home Depot unless you really have a good source that can get it for you much cheaper. And then I'd be just weary about, is there a warranty? Like, are these things working? Are they gonna break? That kind of stuff. It ended up being a lot better for us to just go through the big box store. Now, once you're done furnishing, you're done with the rehab, the last thing you have to do is take photos. So hopefully you have it staged nicely. My wife's awesome. She pretty much designed and staged this whole place and it looks great. If you're doing a flip, you might wanna hire that out. The photography has to look really, really good to catch those eyeballs. And furnishing alone, not just for the photos, but for the tenants, helps a lot with medium-term rentals and short-term rentals. So if someone's staying here for a few months, few weeks, few days, obviously they're gonna need all the dishes, they're gonna need the bed and the TV and the desk and all those things that they're not gonna be lugging around with them. And that is one way that you can get much higher rent every single month. Don't clutter the place, make it nice, clean, and simple and modern, but also match the house vibe and the neighborhood vibe. So we're in an older neighborhood here. The homes look a little older, a little more charming. So we went a little boho on the inside, so my wife says. So again, just keep it nice, clean, and simple. Less is usually more when it comes to this kind of stuff. but a little does go a long way. And by the way, as soon as you get those photos, you can get the thing listed. So we still did some final touch-ups that wouldn't show up on photography. We added some artwork and whatnot after photography. But while we were doing those final touches and cleaning up the backyard, we were able to get traffic online, get people bookings, and we literally were wrapping up some trash removal and whatnot the day before our first guests arrived, and they ended up staying for 1 month solid. So here we are, renovation is complete. We're about 1 month of renting this house out, and it's already doing much better than financially we expected it to do. So very happy about that. Listen, if you're thinking about doing this, I want to encourage you to do it. Just make sure you do it smart. Follow the tips in this video. There's probably a lot that I missed. Questions that you have, put it in the chat below. You can call the number at the bottom of the screen, or you can click the link in the description. Set up a time so we can just have a chat. I can help you out. I am a realtor in the area, helping other people do this every day. Would love to help you out. In the meantime, to learn more, there will be a video up here on the left with the entire renovation process if you want to check that out when it's ready, or you can watch one of my other videos here on the right. Take care, y'all. See you in the next one.